If you do try and jump over and walk around it, that's when you're going to get to the point years down the track and looking back on your life, and you're going to have that feeling of, man, I can't believe I didn't do it because I was afraid of other people's opinions and whatever else it was. There will be nothing worse than to have that feeling. This is where the growth is. You find out your fears, you step into them, you get on the other side, and things continue to open up for you. Where I started was, I knew there was a few things standing in my way from where I was now to where I wanted to be in the future. So what I'd done, I wrote down my top 3 fears, because my main fear was that I knew if I couldn't step into a fear that was a little bit smaller, then there was no way that I could build the courage and be brave enough to step into number 1. So I created a methodical, systematic approach in order to start to step into my fears, and it's identifying your top 3 fears. What's number 1, what's number 2, and what's number 3. Number 1 being most scariest, number 2, and then number 3 the least scariest. Now don't get me wrong, number 3 is going to be freaking scary. But once you put some things into place, once you start to step into that number 3 fear and you come out on the other side of it, you build the confidence. By default, your self-confidence and your self-worth goes up. You increase your self-worth, you increase your self-confidence by default. This is what automatically happens. Step into that number 3 fear, get on the other side of it, and bang, you'll be looking at number 2. You step into number 2, you get on the other side of that one, and now you got the balls, you got the courage to step into number 1. And unless you do it in a methodical, systematic approach like this, it can be too difficult. Some people can do that, but some people can't. They need to start off with something easier, and that's what I needed to do. This system is what works for me, and I want to share it with you because I'm sure you're going to get some benefit out of it. I'm not telling you that this is the only system, the only way to step into your fears, but this is what worked for me, and I want to share it with you. If this is what appeals to you, then go for it. Sit down, write your top 3 fears, hit number 3, hit number 2, and hit number 1. And there's so much on the other side of your fears, it's insane. If you think about it, imagine, this is where I am right now, and this is where I want to be in the future. There's all these barriers in between, from here to my future. This is my end in mind. This is my ultimate goal. I want to go from here to here. There's all these barriers, there's all these walls in between. And what are they? And sooner rather than later, you're going to build massive momentum. You're going to build huge progress to get to this end in mind, to get to this goal, to close that gap from where you are now to where you want to be in the future. Inside this gap, even though it's scary, this is where the growth is, right here. This is where the growth is. Identify your top 3 fears and you'll progress much, much quicker to your end in mind. This is what I call accelerated self-development. Nothing accelerates your growth quicker than stepping into your top 3 fears. Now, in regards to building a business, most people are so afraid to take this first step. It's like, oh, it's not going to work out. What are my friends and family going to think? What if I fail? What are they going to think then? It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Because if your mission statement is there, if it's strong enough, if it's big enough and in line with your personal values and the impact that you want to have on the world, then the opinions of other people don't matter. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. Your mission statement is everything. It will guide you. Now, through these hard times, when you're building your business, when you've stepped into the shoes of an entrepreneur and you're grinding through it every day, you're doing what it takes. Some mornings you'll even watch the sun come up because you haven't even been asleep. You've worked through the whole night. It's happened to me many, many times, and it's not because I'm just trying to punch out the hours and brag about it. It just eventually happens. You just work through the night, and it was just normal. It's weird. It's weird to hear that if you haven't heard it before, but it's probably going to happen to you. If your mission is strong enough, that's the same that will happen to you. Now, during these hard times, even if you feel like you're not making progress, even if you're not getting the financial return that you expected, even if that financial return is taking longer and longer, just remember, in the beginning, when you're grinding through the hours, when you're putting in all those all-nighters, That's where you're making your millions. You're not making it later on, 5 years down the track, when you finally close your first deal or the best one yet or whatever it is. It's now. It's in the beginning. It's those hours. It's that growth. It's that pushing those walls down, facing your fears, stepping into them, seeing what's on the other side. That's when your millions are made. And it relates to business. It relates to personal life. Identify those top 3 fears. Number 3, number 2, and then number 1. It's not just to face those 3 fears and that's it. Those 3 fears are the ones you continually step into and expand on them. You do something larger within that fear. Stepping into those fears and growing from it, seeing what's on the other side, it ends up transferring and leaking into other areas of your life. It's not just you do that and that's it. Once you're stepping into number 3, number 2, and number 1, it's benefiting everything. Everything affects everything else, and you start to create these links, and these links to other areas of your life. These aha moments, the light bulb moments, and you're like, wow, because I stepped into that fear, now I've got the confidence to do this, whereas I wouldn't have done it before. You know, maybe I wouldn't have started this business. Maybe I wouldn't have even taken the next step to chase my dream if I hadn't have gone and stepped into these fears. This is the best way to build a company, to build a business. What impact can you have that's in line with your personal values and your mission statement? And then you can profit financially from that. And then you can have a bigger impact. This is the future of building a company. It's not just about making money. The more money you make, the bigger the impact you're going to have. That's what you need to think about.